Okay, looks like I am live. I'm gonna look on my phone through a different account just to be sure. It's a little bit of a delay, so we'll look and see. But anyway, hello, hi. If I know there's nobody out there live at the moment, and that's okay. If people show up, they show up. If they don't, they don't. They can always watch on the replay. Um, but anyway, hello. If you're new to the channel, my name is Allison, and I am a certified health educator with a master's degree in health education and behavior, which is just a fancy way of saying that I know a little bit about a lot of different topics in health, and I know how to um, find the right information from the right credible sources that are out there. So um, I kind of tasked myself with doing a little series on congestive heart failure because my husband is a heart failure patient, and we have to, of course, live the lifestyle to a certain extent. And since I am a health educator, it's kind of seemed like it would be a good chance for me to at least help people start to understand some things, or if you have questions. So if anybody ever does join me live, please feel free to ask a question or make a comment or whatever you want to do in the comments in the live chat. If you have to have a YouTube account, or you have to be signed into your YouTube account in order to chat live. So just be sure you do that. If you're not sure how to create an account, if you don't have one, I do have a link in our Facebook group, the Congestive Heart Failure Support Group. And so there's a link there to figure out how to set up an account on YouTube or to sign into one. Hi, Miss Sunrise Dawn. Thank you so much for stepping in. I know you're modding. You're always modding, but I appreciate you jumping in to say hi. So hi. So again, a full disclosure, my husband has a heart failure patient, so that's why I wanted to do this little series on heart failure and give everybody a chance to ask questions, make comments. If you are watching this, even if it's on the replay crew, if you would please subscribe and like, and make sure you press the notification bell. If you do that and you click all, make sure you set it to all, you should get notifications for when I have a video out, or even when I have one upcoming that's scheduled. I say should because YouTube is kind of crazy, and sometimes it does not send out the notifications. Yeah, Dawn, I appreciate that. If you have time when you come back and watch on the replay, that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. Thank you, Dawn. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's talk about today. We're going to talk about CHF, congestive heart failure, and sodium. So let me just do something with my screen. I went to print out my notes tonight, and my printer decided to run out of ink, of course. So I'm going to split my laptop screen. I do not have fancy screens, like lots of different screens. So I have to kind of split my screen so that I can see. So I just want to first talk about what is sodium. Let's go back to our high school chemistry days. Any of you who may have taken chemistry in high school or maybe even college. But what is sodium? When we talk about sodium as just the general population, we typically are talking about salt, which is actually sodium chloride. So sodium is an element in the periodic table. And when you combine sodium with chloride, that makes what we call table salt, just regular old plain white table salt. So it is just a mineral. And what it does is it helps us regulate the fluid in our bodies. It helps us regulate nerve function and also muscle contraction. So it does quite a few things in our bodies. It is necessary. We have to have some sodium in our systems. In fact, if you get too low of sodium, it can actually be fatal. It's a very, very dangerous thing to be too low in sodium. So people who are new heart failure patients sometimes get a little overboard, and they're like, I can't have any sodium, no sodium. And that's actually not true. You have to have some sodium. So how much sodium is what we should have? How much sodium should you eat? Well, it depends on the person. So if you are just a regular, everyday, average American adult, not a heart patient, the recommendation is 2,300 milligrams a day of sodium. What should heart patients eat? How much should heart patients consume? So that number is quite a bit lower. It's usually going to be given to you by your physician, your cardiologist, or your heart failure specialist. But the typical recommendation, and the American Heart Association recommendation, is 1,500 milligrams a day. So it's quite a difference. It's 800 milligrams a day different. And we're going to talk about foods and labels and things so you know kind of how much sodium you are consuming. So having said that, 2,300 milligrams a day is what's recommended for a not heart patient person, adult, and 1,500 milligrams for someone who is a heart patient. The average amount of milligrams of sodium consumed by the average American adult, the actual number is 3,400 milligrams a day. That's a lot. That's a full 1,100 milligrams a day more than what is recommended for just not a heart patient, for just a typical adult. So it is important that we lower that sodium, but why? Sometimes I think doctors and practitioners will tell you, you have to lower your sodium. You need to lower your sodium. You need to eat less salt, but they don't really tell you why you need to do that. They might give you a little generic, well, it has to do with fluid. If you eat too much salt, you'll swell up. And that is true. That is true, but it doesn't give us a better picture of what's actually happening. So if you have excessive sodium, that can lead to, actually it does lead to, doesn't can, it does lead to an increased blood volume because of its effect on the body's fluid balance. So that's why your blood pressure goes up. If you eat too much sodium, your blood volume goes up, which means your fluids are going up within your body's system. So like I said, the sodium plays a key role in regulating the amount of water in and around your cells. So it regulates that water. But when there's too much sodium in your bloodstream, then your body retains more water to dilute that excess sodium. So what happens is you get too much sodium in your bloodstream. It's inside your bloodstream, coursing through your body. So your body's like, okay, I need more water. I need to bring more water into my bloodstream to dilute that sodium back to the normal level that I need to have as a body to do the functions that I do within the body. So that's why the doctors are telling you to lower your sodium. It brings in, high sodium brings in more fluid, which just increases the fluid in your body. So when that water retention raises the total blood volume circulating through your blood vessels, that increases your blood pressure. And if you have a higher blood pressure, what we also call hypertension, hyper meaning too much tension, that forces your heart to work harder to pump the blood around your body. So if your heart has to work harder because you're retaining that fluid and you're bringing fluid in, then you're increasing your risk of any kind of heart disease and stroke and heart failure and all those things, cardiomyopathy, all the heart disease issues. So that's why sodium is so important and why they tell you to lower your sodium. They're not doing it because they want you to eat bland food and be miserable. So there really is a purpose to saying, please lower your sodium. Now, I realize it's difficult for a lot of people to lower to 1,500. That's not an easy thing. And you may not have to stay there. Just anecdotally, this does not apply to everyone, so you need to talk to your physician or your cardiologist. But my husband was put on 1,500 milligrams initially. He also was a stroke survivor, 4-time stroke survivor. His fourth one was pretty extensive on the right side of his body, and he's got a lot of it back and only walking with a quad cane now, and he's really working on getting the strength and dexterity back in his right hand as well. But thank goodness he never lost cognitive ability. He always knew who he was, where he was, never lost speech or anything like that. So we were very blessed with that. But initially, of course, he was put on the 1,500 milligrams a day. But once his heart function, his EF, and I know we've talked about this in the support group on Facebook, that your EF is your ejection fraction. In other words, what percentage of the blood volume in your heart is being pumped out with each squeeze? And you hear people talk about numbers, 30%, 50%, 20%, 5%. So your EF is just a portion of what you're dealing with heart failure. Some people have heart failure with what's called preserved EF, which means their EF, their ejection fraction, is still in the normal range, but they're still considered to have heart failure. So it's not always just that number. There's lots of other things that play in. But if your EF is below 30%, you're considered at higher risk for a heart attack or other things. So I don't know where I was going with EF, but I got off on the EF thing. But my husband was put on the 1,500 milligrams. His EF improved from below 30%, between 25 and 30, within about 3 months. of lifestyle changes, he was back to 50 to 55%, which is anything above 50 is considered normal, the normal range. It's the low end of normal, but that's normal. And then his last echo that he had, just so this all happened in 2020, and so late, kind of lateish 2020. So early 2021, he had improved quite a bit, and then he just had another echo in April, or was it April? No, it was the end of last year. So the end of 2023, near the end, he had another echo and he had improved again a little bit to between 55 and 60%. And we're not strict. I like to deal in terms of harm reduction. Just like when you're dealing with any kind of addiction, like heroin or meth or alcohol or any of those things, quitting cold turkey can sometimes, it's off, absolutely difficult, but it's almost impossible and can be fatal in some cases. Like alcohol, if you truly are addicted to alcohol, you should not quit cold turkey, and you should only do it with the advice and the assistance of your doctor. It should be medically assisted. And like I say, I like to talk in terms of harm reduction, doing less, drinking less, using less. And when it comes to sodium, eating less. So after he had that, my husband had that follow-up echo in 2023, and he had improved even again. Our cardiologist said, listen, you don't have to be so strict on your sodium anymore. Try to stick to the 2300 for average Americans, not heart patients. He said, but the main thing is just avoid processed foods. So I'm going to talk a lot about harm reduction and reducing, but I am not militant about you have to stop eating so much sodium, you have to do this, you have to do that. That's not my jam, as they say. That's not my thing. So let's talk about reducing sodium. Actually, before we do that, no, we'll do that when we get to the reading labels. Sorry, I'm a little scattered. So how do we reduce that? Well, one of the first things you can do is just don't add salt. Don't add salt to your food. If you have a plate of food, don't put salt on it. If you think it's too bland because it's maybe been cooked with less salt than you're used to, and I'm a Southerner, I'm a Southern girl, and I probably contributed to some of my husband's issues. I met him and re-met him. We actually knew each other, but we re-met and started in 2014, started dating in late 2015, and we didn't get married till 2020. So I haven't been around a super long time with him, but I do tend to cook Southern, and we Southerners like to put salt in all our food. We like to put bacon in it and salt and all the fun things, right? Butter, all the things we really shouldn't have. I will say I'm not a big fried foods eater, which a lot of Southerners are, but I have not been for many, many years. But in any case, so don't add salt to the food. Don't add salt when you're cooking, and don't add salt when you're getting ready to eat it and your plate is in front of you. You can replace that with a salt replacement. Now, there are other salt replacements out there like potassium chloride. You have to be careful with real true salt substitutes, because especially the potassium chloride, can be very dangerous for someone who also has kidney involvement. And most heart patients, and especially heart failure patients, do have kidney involvement, because your medications that you take for your blood pressure, especially if you're taking a diuretic, affect your kidneys. And a diuretic is a water pill, Lasix, or furosemide, what it's called. There's several others out there. I'm not going to talk about meds. We can do that in another video. But those can affect your kidneys, so you don't want it to necessarily use potassium chloride, because high amounts of potassium are not good for a kidney patient. So some of the things that we use, a lot of people like the Dash products. It used to be Mrs. Dash back in the old day, which means I'm probably dating myself for some of you younger folks that might be watching. But the Dash products are there. We happen to like the Stone Mill salt-free table blend, and that is something sold at Aldi. Excuse me. My allergies are kicking my hiney today. So if I sniff or sneeze, I apologize. Okay. So Stone Mill salt-free table blend. That's an Aldi product at the Aldi grocery store. If you happen to be lucky enough to have an Aldi near you, the Stone Mill salt-free table blend is excellent. Excellent. I use it for cooking. Tony does not, my husband's Tony, he does not typically season his food after he has it on the table unless he's adding pepper or pepper flakes. Or we'll talk about this in a minute. He is Italian, so if we're eating spaghetti or anything other kind of pasta, he likes to put, grated Parmesan on there, which is not the best bet, all because cheese is high in salt, but he's allowed to get away with a little bit of that, again, because his heart condition has improved, his heart function has improved. So find a blend that works for you. There's also, what is the name of that company? I meant to pull it up. I'm gonna try to. I don't think I have time to find it. I'll put it in the comments on the video for when it's replay. There's another brand out there. It's pretty expensive, and you can order directly from them or from some of the low sodium order places that you can find online. Gosh, what is the name of that brand? I really like their seasonings and their salt replacement one. I can't remember what it's called, but it's also really, really good. So look for that. You can also use other things like balsamic vinegar. That's one that's really popular with the heart patient crowd because there's a lot of flavor in balsamic vinegar. And you can use it with chicken, with beef, pretty much with anything. My husband likes it on his salads. He'll use an oil and vinegar, or he'll use the balsamic vinegar dressing just because it really has a nice flavor for it. There is also a product. I tried to find it online and I cannot find it. It's like they talk about it in the group. You'll see it in the CHF support group on Facebook. It's some kind of flakes that you put, and not the nutritional yeast, I don't think. It's something that's like a cheese flake or a cheese flavored flake that's either low salt or no salt. I can't remember. And a lot of people like to put that on their food as a kind of a seasoning after it's cooked to help with the flavor. I will tell you though, if you're not ready to go cold turkey, and you really shouldn't be, if you want to just start reducing in the amount of sodium that you're eating, as you do that, your palate will get used to that, and you will start noticing when you eat something that you haven't prepared at home. Maybe you go out to dinner somewhere and you eat something that's higher in salt. You taste in you'll taste it and you'll think, wow, that's really, really salty. I obviously am eating lower sodium because I eat with Tony, and I cook a lot of food here at home, less so in more recent times, but for a good year there, I was very militant about cooking at home and making sure he was eating lower sodium. But I even got used to it. And I'm a Southern girl. I like my salt. I like my seasoned salt on pretty much everything. But I got used to not having as much salt in the food that's cooked. So your palate will get used to it. One of the best ways you can lower your sodium intake and look in terms of harm reduction and not going so drastic is to just avoid processed foods. Now, when we talk about processed foods, those are things like canned foods, boxed foods. You can find canned things that are lower sodium. They're still not technically low sodium, but they are lower sodium. And those are good. Those are a great product. And yes, you can like get a can of lower sodium green beans, and then you can rinse those green beans to try to get some of the salt out, but they have absorbed some of the salt. So you're still going to get salt in there. But that's canned foods, boxed foods, or processed foods like mac and cheese, Easy Mac, that kind of stuff. Things that are boxed and are processed, those are going to have a much higher sodium content. So just be aware of that. So I advise people to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. So where all the refrigerated stuff is, shop in those areas. If you want something in bulk or something that you can put away and use later in the week, rather than getting canned green beans, get frozen green beans. You do have to have a fair amount of freezer space, and not everybody has that, but frozen is a good choice. If you can't do fresh or need to have things ahead of time versus having to go to the grocery store all the time and getting fresh, frozen is a good option. Fresh veggies and fresh fruit are your best bet when it comes to that sort of thing, and fresh lean meats. So any fresh meat in the store now, some of your things like your chicken that's been packaged is processed and it's been brined. It's actually been processed in a salt water. But you can look at the nutrition label to figure those things out. So again, shop the perimeter of the store, stick to fresh foods, and try to stay away from processed foods. So we're going to talk about reading labels. So give me 1 second here to put this back up. And I want to see, I'm just going to put in hot dog. All right. Frankenfurter or hot dog beef. All right. So let me share my screen. One of the things you want to do is start looking at your labels. So let me go back over here. I'm going to present and share screen. I want to share that one. Share. So let me just go over here and make sure you're seeing it. You are seeing it. Excellent. Okay. So this is a label for just a Frankfurter or hot dog, a beef version. So the serving size, we're going to look at a lot of things. First, let's look down here. Let's look just at sodium. Look how much sodium is in a hot dog, a typical beef hot dog. 1,300 milligrams, 1306.2 to be exact. That's a lot of sodium. Now, when you're looking at a label, you should look at what it actually says for sodium, but you should also go up and look at the serving size. That's 1 cup sliced. So that is not like just one hot dog. Let's see if we can do that. 1 foot long. We'll do that. So here's a foot long, and that has a little less. So that's less than a cup. So when they say a cup slice, that's a lot more than your typical hot dog. But still, 761 milligrams, that's a lot of sodium. If you can only have 1,500 a day and you're shooting for that, that's half. That's half your sodium for the day in one hot dog. So it's important to not just look at how much sodium, but also what the serving size is. So let's look at another one. Let's look at bread. So we're just going to look at some white bread. 1 slice of white bread. You ready for this? So here's our nutrition label. So 1 serving is a slice. That one kind of makes sense. Look how much sodium is in a typical slice of white bread. 142. Now I will tell you the typical ones, this says 142, and I'm saying typical because this is kind of looking at white bread across the board, not at any brands. The brands that I typically use, like Nature's Own, it's about 100, anywhere from 90 to 110 milligrams for 1 slice of bread. But let's say that you want to make a ham sandwich. If you get 2 slices of white bread and at say 100-ish milligrams each, you're already up to 200 milligrams and you haven't even put any ham on there. And ham is high in sodium typically. So you really have to look at your labels. What is the serving size and how much sodium is in that? So that's for when you're shopping. Now, let's look at, just for fun, let's look at Boar's Head. Let's see if it'll give me a brand. Boar's Head Black Forest ham. Oop. Would help if I spelled it right. Black Forest ham. All right, so let me go by slices. All right, we're going to do an ounce. When you do slices, they're not as much as an ounce, but let's say there's an ounce. So an ounce of Black Forest ham is 141 milligrams. So if we went with the bread that had 142, that's 284 milligrams of sodium. And now we're adding another 141 onto that. So how much is that? I don't do math in my head well. 5, 2. It's too much for just a sandwich. It's a lot for just a sandwich. And that's only an ounce of meat. What if you're eating more than that? When you're talking meat, especially meat, if you want to know, let me unshare. Let me take it off. Stop screen. Okay. When you are looking at how much is an ounce of meat, if you take your hand and look at the palm of your hand, so about that size and about as thick as a deck of cards, that is 4 ounces-ish for most people. Somebody with large hands, it's going to be more. Somebody with small hands, it's going to be less. But the typical person, about the size of the palm of your hand and the thickness of a deck of cards, is 4 ounces in that ballpark. So that's going to let you know how much sodium. You can sort of use that to gauge. Now, one of the questions you might have is, how can I track my sodium? Yes, I know if I'm in the grocery store now, I should be looking at the labels, but how do I track it when I'm eating it? So that's something that's called a sodium tracking app. I have used one. I don't think I still have it on my phone. Give me 1 second to look. Let me double check. I may still have it. I'm not 100% sure. I think I took it off because he's not eating anywhere near 2,300 milligrams a day, and we don't need to track it anymore. But some people still do. Yeah, I don't have it anymore. But there's sodium tracking apps there. You can get a free one that works really well. You can use something like MyFitnessPal. Yeah, MyFitnessPal has a food tracker in there, and you can track your sodium on that as well. You just have to learn where to go to look for it. But that's a great way to track your sodium levels, is to use a tracking app. Now you can use it, do the old-fashioned way and write it down. I am having a slice of white bread, so that's 100, and you can just keep tabs all day by hand. I find it much easier to do it on a phone, but then again, I'm a late Gen Xer, so I've adopted technology pretty well. So let's just go over the basics again. Sodium is necessary. You need it in your body to function. It's what regulates how much fluid is in our body, and we know fluids are important. We do have to have a certain amount of fluid per day or you'll get dehydrated. I know some of you are probably on fluid restrictions, or some of your loved ones might be on fluid restrictions. Some cardiologists are kind of getting away from that because it's really not so much the fluid as it is the sodium. And people just aren't aware how much sodium that they're consuming. They'll go to their doctor and say, but I'm not adding any salt. I'm not putting any salt in my food. Well, yeah, but if you're eating that ham sandwich with a slice of cheese on typical white bread, you're already probably getting close to 500 milligrams of sodium just for that sandwich. So you really have to be careful with how much you're consuming. It's hidden. The sodium is hidden in the food. Oh, I wanted to show you this too. Hold on. Let me go back to share screen. Let me go back over here. I'm going to present, share screen. I wanted to show you, you don't have to look up brands. You can look up things like an egg. Let me go bigger here so I can see. All right. So I'm going to find another food. I'm just going to look at an egg. Come on. Go. Why isn't it searching? Okay. Now it's going to make me a liar. All right. I'm going to go. I think there's another one I can use. Let me go back over to my notes. Yeah, there's one called Nutritionix. Nutrition IX. Let's go there. nutritionix.com. There we go. Make sure you're seeing that. You are. Yay. All right, so I'm just going to look up an egg. Whether it's a boiled egg, fried egg, whatever. One large egg. Is it going to show me the nutrition label? There it is. Where'd it go? Here we go. So here's an egg. So for this egg, an egg is 71 milligrams. So you can look up anything. You can look up lettuce. You can look up tomatoes. You can look up any food and see what that sodium is. So if you're shopping in the grocery store, you can look up anything. If you can't find, if it's something you don't have a label for, because you don't have a nutrition label on bananas, for example. So you can look up how much sodium is in that food item typically, just to give an idea. So I wanted you to know you don't have to just look up brands. You can look up other things as well. Let's see if we can look up bananas. Bananas. Here we go. And here's the food label for bananas. One medium banana, 7 and 7/8 of an inch, has only 1.2 milligrams of sodium. So there you go. Bananas are very low in sodium. However, they are high in potassium. So look down here, potassium, 422.4 milligrams. So if you have kidney involvement with your heart failure, you do not want to be doing a lot of bananas, because that's going to be too high in the potassium level. So let's go back to our little review real quick. Sodium is important. Read the labels. Try to avoid potassium chloride as a salt replacement, as a salt substitute, they call it. Look for things like the Mrs. Dash products, which are now just called Dash, or the Stone Mill salt-free table blend, and the one that I can't remember that I will go look up and I will put in the comments on the replay. Avoid processed foods and use some things like balsamic vinegar or pepper flakes, or anything else that can give you flavor. Garlic powder is great. Onion powder is great. Just to give flavor without adding the sodium in as well. And read your labels. And if you don't know how to read, if you have a food that doesn't have a label, a fresh food, you can look it up. You can also use your MyFitnessPal tracker, and if you're using something like that, or a sodium tracker, and pretend like you ate an egg, and it'll tell you right there how much it is, and then you can delete it if you're not going to eat the egg. So use that sodium, track your sodium in some way. So that's pretty much all I have for CHF and sodium. It's just sort of a basics on why it's important that we do try to reduce the amount of sodium that we're consuming, but you don't have to completely eliminate it, and you honestly shouldn't completely eliminate it. Sodium is important in your body. It's how your muscles contract. It regulates your nerve function. It regulates how much fluid is in your body, but we do want to look at harm reduction and reduce the harm sodium's doing to us by lowering the amount we're eating without going cold turkey. So if you have any questions that I didn't cover, feel free to drop them in the comments on the replay later on. because obviously there's nobody watching right now. So if you're watching the replay later and you have questions or comments, please put them there. I do get notified, and I do go back and look at my videos to see if anybody has made any comments. So just let me know. I'm here to help. I'm just trying to help people out because we have gone through this journey. My husband's health improved immensely just by making lifestyle changes without doing it drastically, with the eye towards harm reduction. So just want to leave that thought with you. Read your labels. If you have questions, let me know. You can also email me at allison.primalscream, the name of this channel, Allison, it's ALLISON primalscream@gmail.com. You can send me questions there as well if you have any specific concerns or questions that you would like for me to address. I don't have all the answers, but I do know how to find the right answers from the reputable sources that are legitimate out there. So you're not being sold a bill of goods, you're getting accurate information. So please feel free again. It's Allison, ALLISON .primalscream@gmail.com. That's all for now. So ta-ta.